Hello everyone, I'm Dan the Cineman and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be giving you my spoiler-free and spoiler-full thoughts on Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary is a 2026 science fiction film directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, and it stars Ryan Gosling, Sandra Hüller, amongst others, including my boy from The Bear, Lionel Boyce. I went to see this film yesterday on Thursday, the 19th of March, in IMAX at Broughton Cineworld. Obviously, I'm a member of the Unlimited there, so I only had to pay £5 for the IMAX screening, which is really nice. I think yesterday was release day, but then I think it had some early screenings last week. I'm a bit confused with the release window, but I think the wide general release was yesterday. And yeah, I had the chance to go and see this. I went to IMAX as well, my first IMAX viewing for a while. Yeah, first one since I went to see the new Avatar in December, so first one of the year. And yeah, Project Hail Mary is about the Earth's sun dying, and Ryan Gosling's character is sort of chosen to figure out what's going on and help put a stop to it. Along the way, he meets this character, Rocky, and the film is basically about their relationship as well as, saving the planet, the stakes there. Won't go into any more specific details until the spoiler full section, but please do stick around for the spoiler free section if you want to know my thoughts on this film and then deciding whether to go and see it yourself. Just to quickly touch on that, what I do with my review videos is, I do that spoiler-free section for the people who haven't seen the film, and then the spoiler-full section for the people who have and want to know my thoughts on specific details, so it sort of benefits both viewers. So if you haven't seen the film, watch the spoiler-free section, and then hopefully you'll come back for the spoiler-full section once you have seen it. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into my spoiler-free and spoiler-full thoughts on Project Hail Mary. Just my usual disclaimer quickly, I'll use images throughout this video. I try to use images that are in the public domain, so require no credit to be given, but where this isn't possible, credit will be given where it is due in the bottom section. Okay, my spoiler-free thoughts on Project Hail Mary. Yeah, this was a good film. There was a lot that I liked. There was a lot that I didn't. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, and for me, that is sort of the epitome of the 3.5 star. A lot that I liked, but also a lot of parts that didn't quite work for me. Specifically, I said, we haven't had a properly great sci-fi film since Dune Part 2 blessed our screens, and whilst this doesn't solve that problem, it's a great effort. Possibly the most millennial-coded film I've ever seen, right down to the ironic t-shirts. Greg Fraser and IMAX are a match made in heaven. This looked incredible. I just want to jump straight in to two of the big positives of this film for me, and that's the way it looked and the way it sounded. The cinematography is absolutely insane. Greg Fraser is one of the only working cinematographers who has the ability to draw me to a film they worked on, mainly because they worked on it. He's that good. And yeah, like I said, I saw this in IMAX. It was just incredible. Some of the scenes, there was no green screens used in this film. Have that in your mind before you go and see this film. Or if you've already seen it, let me tell you, there was no green screens used at all in this film. They created the rocket ship from scratch, and all the visual effects with the space scenes were either practical or done with using technology other than green screens. And that just makes the effect that much more powerful. All the scenes in the rocket ship are just filmed so satisfyingly and like realistically as well. Obviously the ship would be spinning in parts, so we see the light shifting around Ryan Gosling's character to obviously portray that realistic movement in space. And Greg Fraser is that guy. Daniel Pemberton's score is generational here. It really accentuates. Obviously, a film like this has lots of big moments, and they're made even bigger by the score. Like I said, they look good and they sound great because they're accentuated by great cinematography and great music. Daniel Pemberton is someone whose work I am familiar with because he's linked up with Lord and Miller previously on both of the Spider-Verse films, and they have great soundtracks. He also did The Materialist, and he's doing The Drama, which I actually didn't know. And I was already excited to go and see that film with my girlfriend. I'm even more excited now that I know he's worked on it because I know how good he is. And I think this is his best work. Like I said, the big moments are accentuated with powerful music to make them even more impactful. And the way this film looked and the way it sounded were, for me, by far the two highlights. I like Ryan Gosling, so I enjoyed his performance here. He brings that comedic presence to any character he does. I just didn't love his character here. To be honest, I didn't care for a lot of the plot. I just didn't really feel connected to it. I didn't really feel the stakes were that high. Because of the tone of the film, it sort of jumps around from being serious to being silly. You never really quite know where you sit. And for me, that did make the big moments a little bit sour because, they'd be followed by a comedic moment that just completely nullified the impact of the big scene. The comedy as well was really, really not for me. When I saw this, I was in the cinema, and it obviously had some millennials and some older people because they were laughing at every comedic beat, like on cue. They were laughing at every joke, and I just didn't find it that funny. It really didn't work for me. Like I said in my letterbox review, it was so millennial coded, right down to the ironic t-shirts. You'll see what I mean when you watch the film. It was just, yeah, it didn't really make me laugh too much. I didn't love the comedic aspect of this film. The main sort of crux of the film is the relationship between Ryan Gosling's character and this alien creature, Rocky, that he meets during his sort of mission. And it is a sweet relationship. It does sort of explore friendship on a surface level, but doesn't really go into it too much and doesn't really grapple with any other themes. I'm a massive sci-fi fan, and what I love so much about the genre when it's done right is that it uses the unreal setting that it's based in to explore very real emotions and themes. Take for example Interstellar, which is a film all about, the power of love transcending time and gravity. You've got the Blade Runner films that deal with what it means to be human, and if we can't tell the difference between a human and a replicant, is there really any difference at all? You've got Alien, which is all about pure survival instinct and the horrors of space and how isolating and lonely it is. These amazing sci-fi films all deal with these very human and very real themes and emotions using their unreal setting and world building as a platform. Project Hail Mary didn't quite tickle that itch for me. It didn't quite explore themes in great detail. It's the world it was based in was quite limited, so there wasn't much world building going on. I didn't particularly care for the science aspect, with the astrophage. I'll go into specifics later, but yeah, I didn't massively care for the characters or the plot. It was a little too long as well. The first act dragged for me before we really got into any of the, nitty gritty of the film. The sort of setting the scene was a bit boring for me, and yeah, too long. And then the ending, I hate when a film doesn't know when to end. This film did not know when to end. It kept rage baiting us with like 3 different endings. Like it could have ended once and then again and then again. I actually quite liked the ending and where they finished, but it could have got there like 3 scenes earlier. But yeah, look, the main things I liked about this film were the actual creation of the film, the way it looked and the way it sounded. Like I said, Greg Fraser and Daniel Pemberton did their stuff. I just didn't love the plot, didn't love the characters, didn't love the actual science fiction aspect. And yeah, I like my sci-fi when it goes into human emotions and, human themes. This just didn't scratch that itch for me. I would still recommend, like I said, see it on a big screen, see it on IMAX. It looks insane. So I would recommend going to see it, but for me, it's not without its drawbacks. It is quite a crowd pleaser. Maybe that's one of its disadvantages. But yeah, you would probably find something in here that you'd enjoy. If you're a sci-fi fan, if you're a Ryan Gosling fan, if you just want a light-hearted watch, you'd enjoy going to see this. So I would recommend it. It's not the best film of all time. I still think 2026 is yet to really kick off. Like I said, this doesn't answer the problem of the lack of great sci-fi films we've had recently, but it's a great effort. I've been Dan the Cineman. I hope you've enjoyed this spoiler-free section of the review. If you do go and see the film, please revisit the video and go through to the spoiler-full section to hear what I have to say about specifics. And yeah, otherwise I'll see you at the movies. Okay, if you're here, you've either seen the film or you don't really care about spoilers. And to be fair, I'm not going to get that spoilerific, if you'd like. There's not that much I have to say on the specifics, but there is a few. And yeah, let's get into them. The first spoiler full positive I wanted to point out was it builds on the point I made earlier about how good this film looks. It's the shot of Ryan Gosling when he's doing the spacewalk, collecting the astrophage in front of the green planet Obviously, the planet looked insane, and then he switches into that sort of infrared vision, and it's the red shot with the astrophage all around him. That looked incredible, especially on IMAX. Like I said, the massive screen, it just looked so good. And yeah, coupled with Daniel Pemberton's score, I need to see these two work on a film together again because they're just a match made in heaven. Those two plus IMAX equals Happy Dan. Yeah, that was the main spoiler, full positive that I wanted to go into. It's yeah, the point I mentioned earlier about the lighting in space. It's just when obviously they activate the centrifuge, so he's spinning around, and there's like the light from the planet like shifts around Ryan Gosling's face. I just thought that was like, you know, a nice bit of realism, but also sort of crafted into making the film look even better. I enjoyed the back and forth in terms of the chronology. I do sort of hate the insomnia cliche. You know, Ryan Gosling's character starts, wakes up from a coma, doesn't remember what happened. I understand that we sort of learn what happened with the character, don't get me wrong. I just always seems a little bit of a cop out to me. And I enjoyed the build up to sort of how he ended up signing on for Project Hail Mary. And then I'll be honest, I hated the reveal that he was just forced into it. You know, I was really enjoying the whole he's not a hero aspect. He's admitting that he's not up to the job. It was always like, oh, how's it going to turn around? And it's quite different to, you know, the hero tropes that we often see. And then, yeah, it just turns out that he was like sedated and like put into the coma. That felt for me like a bit of a slap in the face. It didn't feel like a satisfying payoff at all. And yeah, that quite annoyed me, to be fair. Left me with a sour taste in the mouth because, like I said, I really enjoyed the build up to it. You know, we start with him on the ship and we keep flashing back to him being a teacher, and it's like, okay, how did he end up there? And then, yeah, just to find out that he was physically forced into it, that did quite annoy me. And yeah, it wasn't a satisfying payoff at all for me. One of the big moments that felt lost on me was Sandra Huller's karaoke scene. Obviously, she's singing Sign of the Times, which is a beautiful song by Harry Styles. I'm just not quite sure what relevance it had to the film or to that scene. She's singing it looking at Ryan Gosling's character saying everything's going to be all right. Maybe that's obviously sort of foreshadowing what she's about to do in terms of betraying him. But yeah, that felt a little bit lost on me. One of the sort of quieter moments of the film that still didn't quite land with me. I mentioned previously, this is a light-hearted watch, despite the stakes being that Earth is, you know, in massive trouble and the sun is literally going to die. Because of the tonal shifts in the film, you never quite feel those stakes. You never quite feel the sort of impact of what these characters are doing. It always felt like it was going to end up okay. You know, there didn't feel like there was a lot of risk, even during the risky scenes. You know, like when Ryan Gosling's character loses the collector and he has to go and grab it. You know, or when Rocky quote unquote dies, you never really think he's dead, and that sort of took me out of the sadness of Ryan Gosling's character when he discovers him. You know, you just think he's gonna be fine. Obviously, the revival and the reunion was really sweet, but yeah, it took me out of that sort of tense and sad moment because I just knew everything was going to end up okay. Rocky's character as well, his backstory felt really underdeveloped. I'm not sure if I missed things, but so the rest of his crew died from some radiation sickness. That was literally like a one-line explanation. I felt a little bit disappointed with that because, you know, he's this alien character. His ship is mental. He's obviously got some crazy background, and then we're just told that his ship died, you know, his crew die of this radiation sickness that Ryan Gosling doesn't seem to be impacted with at all. Maybe I've missed something there, I'll admit. I will probably rewatch this film, so, you know, maybe I'll pick up on that. I just felt that was underdeveloped. And Grace's character as well, he mentions a love interest. That, again, that's a one-liner. These sort of things annoy me when, you know, they introduce these interesting character ideas and motivations and then just do not explore them at all. That was annoying for me. I know it sounds like I'm just slagging the film off now, but I did enjoy it. Like I said, the cinematography and the soundtrack were the two heavy highlights for me. Basically earned the 3.5 stars there themselves. I enjoyed other aspects of the film. Like I said, I just didn't massively care for the plot, for the science aspect, or for the characters. It always feels a bit unfair to use writing critiques against a film that's an adaptation. The reason I love films is because they can look beautiful and they can sound amazing. So I do appreciate this film as a film. Maybe as an adaptation, I'm not sure how great it is, like I say. And it seems that my gripes are mainly with the source material, not the film. And like I said, the highlights for me were the way the film looked and sounded. So as a film, I definitely recommend it, like I say. But yeah, I just didn't love the element of this film, the characters or the plot. If you're here, you've either seen the film or you're a sicko who's going to go and see the film knowing everything about it. Either way, let me know in the comments below what you think, what you thought of the film. And yeah, if you agree with what I said, if you disagree with what I said, that's what this whole channel's about. And yeah, I've been Dan the Cineman. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm just trying to think what my next viewing is going to be. I want to go and see Arco, that Western animated film. It looks like a Western Ghibli. I'm excited for that. And yeah, maybe that'll be my next review, but no promises. I've been Dan the Cineman. This has been my spoiler-free and spoiler-full review of Project Hail Mary. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you at the movies.